guys, welcome back to Gardening with Creations by DX & Co. Today I actually have all this leftover lumber here that I'm going to take and turn this into this. Let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is identify how big a 5-gallon bucket or the one you're planning to use actually is. Now, my guess is that they're pretty standard, but I've got 3 different ones from 3 different places, and we'll see if they all meet the same thing. This one is 11 3/4 wide at the lip. So we've got about a 1/2 inch lip. So 11 1/4 if we want to use the lip as our support. Again, same thing. Okay. And then this one here. So great news. All of our 5-gallon buckets are roughly the same. So that's fantastic news, especially since that one already has a pepper in it. So that's the measuring I'd be going off of. So there are 2 different designs that I've seen when it comes to building these. You can support them underneath the lip there and have your 2x4s on all 4 sides supporting your bucket, okay? Or there's also one where a 2x4 is running underneath all your buckets to support it that way as well. So the question becomes, which way works best? I don't know if there's a right answer to that. I will tell you from experience though that the size of all of these plastic buckets, whether it be these ones or another one, if you're growing in them for a few years, which I would assume that's your point and what you're trying to achieve, these sides actually get brittle from the sun. The plastic heats up, expands, contracts from the weather so much that these actually snap and actually crack. So with that being the case, so do the actual buckets themselves. I don't know if it's this one or another one, has a split right down the side. So the buckets do actually tend to get weak over time. If you're planning to replace them every couple of years, no big deal. Definitely could go with the side method. If you're really hoping to one and done these, you're definitely going to want some support underneath, maybe even on the sides. So something to keep in mind. These particular buckets here are from Walmart in the paint department. I want to say I paid about $2 a piece for them. That's the least expensive I've seen. I know Harbor Freight has them for like $5 a bucket. Home Depot, same thing. So it really just depends on what you're going for. Do you want them all uniform, same color, plank, so on and so forth. But you can get some nice clean buckets and do this. I've personally got kind of a smorgasbord of them that we're going to be working with. So let's keep going. Okay, so while my intent was to have 5 buckets wide and 2 rows, unfortunately the wood that I showed you that I was using, the 2x4s, aren't long enough for that. I drew this out along the side so that I got my exact measurements for 4. So I did my 1.5 inch 2x4, 11.25 or 11 1/4 is your in between your 2x4 space. That's so that bucket rests perfectly in there. So if you're trying to do this, these will be the measurements you'll want to use. So your 1.5 inch 2x4, 11 1/4, 1.5 inch 2x4, 11 1/4, 1.5 inch, so on and so forth. You want to do it just exactly like I did with the 4 different spots. What you're going to do is actually do 53 inches. So you need one for the top back, top front, bottom back, bottom front, and then we need that support piece that's going to run underneath the bucket. So all together we actually need 6 pieces at 53 inches. Now, if you're going to add on buckets or subtract buckets, whatever the case may be, you're going to have to adjust your numbers accordingly. Like I said, I would draw it out on the side of the board if needed, so that way you have your exact measurements. Okay, so you can see here that I've marked my 53-inch mark, and what I'm using to cut with today is a circular saw. So this is just a hand saw, if you will, not a hand saw, but an electric saw, battery operated, from Harbor Freight. Nothing fancy, but if you have something similar to this, it's recommended that you have a speed square. What you do is you actually use your speed square as a guide by holding the top edge on there and lining up this lip and running alongside of it. Okay, if you've never used a tool like this before, there's a 0 on there usually, or a line. That's your center mark. So if you are going across your line, you want to butt that up and line that up. Now, this is my drop piece, or the piece that I'm cutting off. So I want that edge to be as right on that outside like that. That means my blade, essentially that's my blade, is going to cut right along that outside edge. Now if I did it like this, it's going to cut along that inside edge. If I did it there, it's going to cut right down the center. You could cut right down the center. Most people are going to err on the side of caution and actually cut on that. So what we're going to do is use that as our guide, and we're going to slide right along there cutting. That, you notice I can't see my line anymore, so that's why it's important to have this speed square there, because it'll help with getting that out. When I can't see my line anymore, I still have my guide. And that's how you get a square cut. Well, I'm going to go ahead and cut 6 boards all at 53. So now that we've got our pieces cut at 53 inches here, our 6 pieces there for our front and backs, we now need to put in our divider pieces, or our side pieces. So those pieces are actually going to be 11 1/4. We're creating a square, 11 1/4 wide, 11 1/4 deep for our bucket to sit into. So each of our pieces need to be 11 1/4. We're doing 4 spots. We need 2 outside pieces, and we need 4 spots. In order to do that, we need 5 pieces at 11 1/4. So if you were doing 5 buckets, you would have 6 pieces at 11 1/4, and so on and so forth. So we need 5 pieces at 11 1/4. So we're going to go ahead and mark our first one here and get that cut. So that's going to be for our top row, and then we need our bottom row, which means same exact thing. We need another 5 pieces. So altogether we need 10 pieces at 11 1/4. So let's get that cut. Okay, so now that we have some pieces cut, we're going to start getting this put together. So we've got our back of the board here. Okay, so that's going to be our back. This is going to be how it goes together. The back of the board is going to go, the screw's going to go through this piece into our 11 1/4 piece. Okay, so make sure you have a square or flat surface that you're working on. So make sure you use a solid outdoor screw. These are 2.5 inch deck screws that I'm using, so they're not going to rust or break. I actually using the ones that I took out of taking it apart. That's why I use these screws, because you can reuse them on projects. So these screws are probably a couple projects old now. I've taken them out, put them in. So start by flushing up the end piece. You want it flush with the end. Screw in there, top and bottom. 2 screws is perfectly fine. If you want to feel more comfortable and put a 3rd one in there, you certainly could, but it's not necessary. All right, so now that we've gotten this side, I'm going to do the same thing on the other end here. Okay. All right, so now that we have both of our sides actually put on, what we need to do is go ahead and put our opposite board we cut on there. So now that we have our rectangle, we need to put in our pieces. Now we want 11 1/4 in between. Well, just so happens we have 11 1/4 boards, so what we can do is you actually use our board as a spacer on the inside, so we know where to put our screws there, because we've got our spacer here, so we can use, so that'll make a perfect square for us. So there you go, our finished piece should look just like that. 4 spots for 4 buckets. We've got our 11 1/4 on the inside of our two 53-inch pieces. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a second one built just like that. One for the top, remember, and one for the bottom. Now that we've gotten our actual stands built for our buckets, we actually now need to build our side or our legs. So the first thing that I did was measure the actual lip of the bucket itself. Now the lip varies from 2.5 inches to 3 inches depending on the bucket. So you need to determine what your overall finished height of your stand you want to be. Now, I think the perfect height for working is about 36 inches. Great for a raised bed, so on and so forth. For these, I'm thinking a finished height of probably somewhere around 33 inches would be good for me. So I'm thinking a 30-inch tall leg, meaning that's where the actual stand will be, or the bucket will sit. And then the 3-inch lip will give it about 33 inches. And that will be where my plants will grow out of. I think that'll be a good height to kind of harvest. It'll give me that extra 3 inches of kind of harvesting the peppers, plants, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and get 4 legs cut at the 30 inches, and that's going to be my upper legs, and then we will move on to the lower legs. All right, so now that we're done cutting our top legs, we need to cut our bottom legs. And so for that, I brought over a bucket just so we could measure. A bucket here is underneath the lip is 11.5 inches. So we want the bottom of that to rest on 1.5 inch 2x4. So 11.5 plus our 1.5 inch 2x4. And then we also, that 2x4 is going to be resting on top of another 2x4 this way. So that's 3.5 inches. So a total of 5 inches. So in other words, we need a leg size at minimum for our bottom has to be at least 16.5 inches. So that's what I'm going to do, is cut them all at 16.5 inches. I need 4 of them. We need to create some brace pieces in order to determine how long that our brace pieces need to be. Remember, these are going to run from our back leg to our front leg on the top and the bottom all the way across. So one's going to go to the top, one's going to go at the bottom. We need 4 total, all cut to the same size. But in order to determine that, we need to know how wide our top shelf is and how wide our bottom shelf is. Let's go measure those boxes that we already put together and we'll see. So both boxes finished at about 14.5. So we need to span the length of both of them. So 14 and 14 is 28, plus the extra 1/2 inch on each equals 29 inches, or how long our board needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and get 4 boards cut at 29 inches, and these are going to be our cross braces. Now that we have our pieces cut, what we need to do is take one of our front legs, our shorter ones, and one of our back legs, our longer ones, and lay it out just like so. We're going to go ahead and take one of our pieces we just cut there, our 29-inch pieces, and we're going to take it and make it flush with the bottom of each board. We'll go ahead and screw that in. So So you make it flush with the side and flush with the bottom, and that's going to keep you square. And then we're going to do the same thing on the back leg there. Flush with the bottom and flush with the side. So when you stand it up, this piece is actually going to be where our 53-inch piece that we cut earlier is going to lay right there to support the bottom of our buckets. So pretty cool. This is our very back leg, our very front leg, and what we need is another front leg, and right up against it is another back leg. Kind of looks funny at the moment, but once we attach this, this is going to be our side. This board will go on the inside. These we will attach actually after we attach them to the front of our other piece, so that way we know exactly where they go. That's going to be our left side. If we're looking right at it, we have to make a right side, which means this leg needs to be over here and this leg needs to be over here. We need to make sure we make it the opposite way. So we're going to go ahead and take our back leg, our side truss, and our front leg. All right, now that we're done screwing this in, a couple of things that I discovered. You know, I can't put this board on the inside because it'll be in the way of actually mounting our front piece. So this one needs to go on the outside, which is why earlier in the video I said one of your pieces needs to be that longer size here to support our back truss. So, but we can't mount this piece until after we have mounted this, our legs, onto a holder for our buckets. So with that being said, we need to set our cross brace for our top aside for now. So for this step, I figured we'd do a little bit building in place so we don't have to try to carry it afterwards. So what I want to do is actually put my other on the front here, knowing that it's going to end up in the back. So I'm going to do that on both sides, and that's just going to help give me the support that I need. I'd much rather do this on a flat surface, but it's okay. This is where it's going, here or here, but that's not too far to move at least. So we're going to go ahead and screw these two in. That'll allow us to flip it over and then screw in the legs for the sides that we just made. Now keep in mind, truthfully, we could have done this opposite, where we just put all the legs on here, all the legs on there, flipped it over. Do it how you want and then just put the braces on. I guess that would have been easy too. But we're going to go ahead and screw these in, flip it over, screw that on, do the same with the top legs, and then we're going to put our outside braces on. So all right, so now that we've got our legs in, I'm going to go ahead and attach my left hand side, flush the front and the sides. We are going on the outside. You'll see a lot of videos where the legs are mounted on the inside. Based on our measurements, if we did that, a bucket would not fit in there. So you'd have to adjust for those measurements if that's what you want to do, if that's the angle you want to take. And so now my bottom leg that wasn't attached before can be screwed in down here. Does it need to be? No, honestly, it really doesn't. It's not going to make a difference, especially since we're going to put that other cross brace on the outside. So if you want to just save the screws, it's very unnecessary to put that screw in there, but you can do it. And so we need to put this one on this side. I'm going to do the same thing with my top piece, which is go ahead and get the legs on the side and get it mounted to the top just like we did for that, and I'll show you the finished results. and then we'll put our last cross brace on. We're done, right? No. I mean, the truth is you could consider this to be done because let's be honest, it's built in a way that these will support these buckets no matter what, okay? But the idea behind this is that we're gonna create that other brace that we talked about going underneath here to support these buckets as well. So you've got that double support. This is a very heavy bucket. I don't know if you just saw me struggle with it or not, but it is a very heavy bucket. So to rely just on this plastic lip alone over time with the expanding and contracting, it's probably not ideal. So I'm gonna put that other one under there, which means we've got to put our cross brace that we have already cut on the sides. And then we also need to put our bottom brace in the middle underneath both of those that we talked about. So let's get both of those done. So that cross brace here, like I said, is actually going to go just across there like that on the outside. Now the reason I had to go on the outside is because we had to be able to screw in here. So that's why. Now the other one's on the inside, which is going to be that same measurement, those 53-inch board. We're going to go ahead and screw these two braces here on the outside, and then we will screw our bottom support pieces in under there. So I'll be right back. We've got those side braces on that we talked about, and then we've got our last two boards that we're putting on here, and that's going to be our 56-inch board for the front. And our 59-inch board for the back. I got to move that bucket. So I'm going to go ahead, we're just going to screw these in right to the top of this board here. The concept there is that it's going to give you that added support. And if all of our measurements are right here, it's going to rest right down on top of that, just like that. So we've got that added support that we needed. I'm going to go in the back and be that same support for us. Now I'm only using one screw on these because they're not a structural piece by any means. Feel free to add as many screws as you feel comfortable. So there you go, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, got something out of it. A lot of tweaks and adjustments that we made along the way, but we successfully made our 8-spot 5-gallon bucket holder there. And I did it with both structure ways, with the 11 1/4 plus the bottom board. I do think these center boards are great for holding this piece here in structurally, so that's good from bowing out either way over time. So I think it's a good way to do it. It gives you the best of both worlds, so you have a little bit less to worry about. I'm going to go ahead and get all of my 5-gallon buckets drilled. I like to do the holes on the side instead of the bottom. Again, entirely up to you what you feel comfortable with. And I'm going to get all my peppers in here because that's what I actually built this for, was my hot peppers. My sweet peppers are over there, like my bells, but my jalapenos and habaneros I'm going to put in here. That way I can actually bring this inside my greenhouse and save my peppers year over year. So I'm pretty excited about that. Either way, guys, I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you guys are staying safe and enjoying your gardens. Thanks for watching.